Okay, so as you can see, there's a change up in the episodes today, where having watched the episodes with Marcus and Brad and with Scott coming up, I phoned Brett and I said, I think the series is called Legends of the Kayak, of the Yak, so we need to actually talk about how the Yak and the legend of making it. So I gave Brett a phone call, and what was your response? That I'm going to interview you.
I can't remember what I said.
You said, should I be worried?
Yeah, that's what I said. Should I be worried?
So, look, some of the stories are not quite right for this platform, but along the way, if you buy me a beer, I'm happy to discuss some of them with you. A lot of the stories, a lot of these stories will come at Brett's expense, and I know he likes to expose people on this show. But a lot of the stories, I feel people don't know of the progression of the kayaks, where Brett has come from, and I thought it would be nice as part of the series to discuss that and get that going along. So from starting off and explaining that, so you went to the University of Life, and how were you qualified to design watercraft? Like in
University of Life is a good way of putting it.
And
I did go to university.
Did you?
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Okay.
I went to the University of Durban, Westville for 6 weeks to study physiotherapy. And then I got a call from one of the life-saving clubs in Australia, and they said, would you come over and train and race for us? And I was like, when do I leave? That was the end of my degree.
So that's what I was going to get to, is that you started out, when did you start life-saving as a child?
When I was 9. My first competition would have been 9 years old, down at Addington Beach. Back in the day, before we had Clover 101 and we had that old big gravel car park on the top of the hill.
Jeepers, remember that.
Yeah.
So we had, you had Durban Surf, you went to World Champs for life-saving many times with South Africa.
Yeah.
So, and then, I mean, as a person that knows the surf, a story that stands out, I came back and I was training for a race and I said, can you come help me for a swim? And we went for a swim and you said, you were saying, I'm not too fit, I'll try to keep up with you. And we caught a wave and I stood up to talk to you and you were standing on the beach and I was still in the back line. So one bit of advice is that if you're friendly with Brett, don't ever follow him into the surf because he will lead you astray. If you're a newbie, tell him you're a newbie and he will help you. Just a word of advice, because he has been known to lead people astray. Okay, so
yeah, I think if I touch on that, Jamie, like a lot of people don't realize is that when we were kids, okay, we're going way back now, like you would have been 2, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't even have TV, right? I think we had the SABC test pattern from 5:30 on a Friday night, and you only had TV for 2 hours, and it was like Afrikaans on the one night and English on another night. So I literally grew up on the beach at North Beach in Durban Surf, and I grew up every day, whether it be wind, rain or sun, in the sea, swimming in the sea. Walk along the pier, jump off the pier, body surf back. We had things like King of the Wave, body surfing. I mean, I remember with Greg Kiddo, who lives in the UK now, I mean, Greg and I, the one day at the beach, we got to 54 jumps off the pier in a row and body surfing back to the beach when we decided, okay, now we're going to stop. For us, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. And so when I get into the sea, that's, I think I've talked about in some of the other series, is getting familiar with the area that you're in. I was blessed that I spent so much time in the sea that I understand the current to rip. I can sit on the beach and literally in 5 minutes map it out in my head.
Yeah.
Which takes years of
and I think also to that degree, you playing on a kayak now is fun for you. And an example of that is I was standing on the beach with the kids at Nippers and saw you out on one of your round the can skis, and I thought, this isn't going to work well. You're coming in at Umhlanga Rocks and you pegged yourself into the granny's pool exit and the ski went out that way and you went towards the shore.
Yeah.
And I thought, that I could see that happening, but you kind of thought, maybe let's try if we can work this out, but it didn't work out for you in that situation.
So that a lot also comes from once again, another guy, a great guy he lives in Australia now, is Grant for Grandjees. And Grant, I suppose I didn't appreciate at the time, spent every afternoon at the beach paddling his surf ski. He was a legend of Durban surf until he immigrated. And as a junior, he would take everybody under their wing, and we'd go out and we'd go paddle out in the rip, blessed. You can dodge a surf, paddle out in the rip, turn around, catch a wave, and a surf ski. And doing that at North Beach, you don't just go straight. You start to learn to try and surf the waves and everything. And I think I can spend hours on a surf ski, literally surfing a surf ski rather than just paddling it in and out.
And I think that also comes to the fact now, which we'll touch on later. But a lot of people go, a fishing kayak you can't ride the waves, or they look at that. But you're buying it to go fishing, not to ride waves. Yeah. And I think that's a key that people need to remember.
I break it down into time. So if you go fishing for 2 hours, 2 minutes in the surf on the way out. Okay, if you get stopped 10 minutes on the way out. But I mean, what is that in a percentage of the time on the water? It's not even 10%. It's maybe 3-4%. So you want something that's going to perform where you're fishing over something that may perform in the waves for such a short period of time. Yeah. It's intimidating to go in and out of the surf, but equally, regardless of the kayak you're on, if you spend enough time on it, you can learn to work with the kayak instead of working against it.
Okay, so just back to the history of where you again honed your skills and developed an understanding of how a craft works in the water. You spent a few seasons, as you said, racing for Surf Ironman in Queensland, which
I lived in New South Wales, but
was it?
I lived in Cronulla, amazing place, which is probably a bit like Scottsboro was in the day too. An hour and a half out of Sydney. I lived in a flat. I could literally throw a ball out my window, which would land on the Life Saving Club's roof. So that surf life saving was a Sunday afternoon racing, which every week, which if you equated it to something like the Curry Cup, what it used to be on a rugby, where everyone would go down and watch it, and it was a big event. So there was that. You then came back, and I forget the reason why you came back, whether it was you got slower and older, or there was a chick here that told you weren't going back. Probably the opposite, to be honest. But it was the years of going back and forth. And obviously, at the time, the surf skis that were being made in South Africa were, to be honest, a bit outdated. Like the only one we could get was a copy of the 1980 Burton surf ski, which you could get in Australia, and the Hammerhead, which also. And for me, if I wanted to race the Aussies, I need to be on the latest thing. So I'd had to buy a ski in Australia, paddle it, and then bring it back to South Africa. And at the time, it was flipping expensive. It was like in the 90s, you're spending 25 grand to get a ski back to continue what's your passion.
Yeah.
So my dad had been building boats for donkeys. So I went into his factory and I was like, no, surely I can learn how to make this thing. Because fiberglass is fiberglass. In my head, that's what it was.
You're jumping the gun on my notes here.
No, but I'm just saying. So that's how the desire to make a surf ski came. And I think that's what slowed my career down, was making too many skis and not enough time of paddling. Yeah. So
then you were here doing Ocean Warriors, and you guys did some stupid things like swimming from Cape Town to Durban. I remember being on the south coast, and I'm in Yavongo, and there's sardines around, and it's a sardine run, and you guys are swimming past in the boat, and I just thought that was pretty stupid. But again, it's stuff that you did on the sea that created the desire to design boats. And then, as you're saying, you came back less competitive, life saving, and you started working with your dad, and your dad had the CAD and designing the boats.
So I think what actually originally happened was, it was in 1997. I'd come third in the Ironman at World Champs in South Africa in North Beach, which in the inter-club race was pretty much unheard of for a South African to even make the final. That was out of the world. And I was again stuck between a rock and a hard place. Didn't have a ski, needed a ski. So I went over to Oz, and I worked in a factory making a ski in Oz for like 3 months. Came back here and then started making it for myself here. And then that ski, the Ocean Warriors took off. And then I was winning the races with Matt. So between Matt and I, we were winning the races. And the problem became that Matt and I both had the same ski, because Matt had the original from Australia. I had one that I'd made. Now everyone else wanted. So every day I was going, training in the morning, spending my whole day making a ski for all the guys I was racing.
Yeah.
And that it slowly took into my time, and then it came to a stage where we had a Tri-Nations test between Australia and New Zealand, and it was in Cape Town. And the coach at the time was late Mickey Sadler, and Mickey came to me and said, "Listen, you need to be at Cape Town on Monday." And I was like, "Mick, I have a little bit of a business here. Like I'm making skis and stuff. I can train in Durban. I mean, I've been in the national team for 7 years. So I said, can I train in Durban and come on the Friday, and then I'll be there to compete the whole weekend?" And he was like, "No, you need to come on a Monday. You need to make a decision. Come on a Monday, you come on a Friday." And I was like, "Mick, I don't make money out of this.
Yeah.
I have some stage in my life to make a decision." And that was the end of my international career. I was like, wrote a letter to SLR Saving, and I said, no thank you, I'm done. And the focus went zoop straight onto work now. So that became that.
I remember that, I had one of those skis where I think it was that purple one, and Matt had broken it and then pieced it back together, and I was using it, and we used to fish with Clark spoons, a bass rod, and an old Pen 500, and you had a crayfish bag on your back.
A backpack.
And you paddled up and down in front of Blue Lagoon and lugs there, and you used a Clark spoon because it was the least thing with hooks.
It was the only thing we knew.
And you put your snook in the back in your crayfish bag or your backpack. So I used that, and then there was you evolved from those round the can skis, life-saving skis, to the long distance skis. You also made a boat for Len Jenkins, who won the doozy in that stealth.
Early 90s.
How many?
No, it would have been early 2000s.
Yeah, 2000s. How many? I think he did 3 or 4 singles in that boat.
I think it was, I think he only did 2.
Okay.
Len only did 2. And I think the one that he won, and then the following 2 years later, that was pretty much where it ended,
And then you shifted your focus purely to the surf craft.
I shifted my focus more towards the fishing because in my mind I understood that to make a competitive surf ski or to make a competitive canoe, you need to be fully entrenched in that market.
Yeah.
And I wasn't comfortable with racing anymore. I had done it so competitive that I wanted to step back. Doozy for me was always just a passion and fun, and I was never going to come in the top 10. So it was doing a half job of this and a half job of that and a half job of that, or put all your energy into one and hope like hell that it works. And that's where it really did. It was like I put all my energy into fishing. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I tried.
So what was when you started making those kayaks, which was the first one, the BFS or the Superlight?
No, so the first kayak I ever made was a kayak called a Kuta.
Okay.
It was horrendous. It was a rescue craft.
Yeah.
We put a hatch in it. Yes, and the thing was so complicated. It had like this waterproof PVC cover to protect the hatch so the water didn't get in and everything. But I mean, to fish on it was a disaster. And obviously I paddled that, and that's when my brain went, if I can't surf this thing, how is anybody going to be able to even paddle this thing?
Yeah.
Because like I say, I could ride anything.
Yeah.
And that's why the Superlight came about, was because I felt that thing was just too hard for the average Joe to paddle.
So the Superlight was the first official one.
Yes.
After
Superlight, when it went Superlight, then for the bigger guys we made a Superlight X, and then for the bigger guys, and also because we wanted a longer ski because we go faster, we made the BFS.
Okay.
We won't ask why it's called the BFS.
It's an acronym for a reason.
Yeah.
And then there was
something along the lines of the big fishing ski.
there was
and it's not big
a
anymore.
2010 version.
Yeah. So 2010 was just like we continuously do, change molds.
Okay.
So your mold would have been, I'm trying to think now, the first Superlight was built in 2002, all right? And then obviously we went Superlight X, BFS. By that stage, 6 or 7 years had gone by. And in about 2008, we remade the molds. So new molds, and we bought it, it's a 2010 model.
Okay.
And that's where the 2010 came from.
So these skis were still, they were still very, very cumbersome compared to what we know now. Yeah. So when you paddled into any sort of chop, there was a lot of water slap against it. It became arduous, and they were and heavy. So you'd come back from a fishing session absolutely broken.
Yeah. You didn't want to fish in the current at Vidal.
So I know there's a story that you've told me before with where the evolution from those sort of round nose skis and kayaks to the point, where you were training with Brett Bartho for a doozy, and which is a 3-day river race, and you guys decided to train in the sea with lures behind you.
On a double surf ski, yeah.
Was it? And were you not on these boats?
No, we did. We went. I think we went down the coast over the December period, and we paddled singles. But yeah,
and Brett said to you, "Can you make something
Surely
more
we can make
efficient
something closer to a surf ski
that makes it better for fishing and paddling, for the paddling fishermen that can paddle further."
Yeah.
So that was the evolution of the.
Well, I think actually, to be honest, I think the evolution range, which is now obviously what we call the Fisher range, the evolution range we had come about with that before that, but it was still not fast enough.
Yeah.
It was pointy nose, pointy tail, but it still wasn't fast enough. And then that's when the Pro Fisher range came about. Was Brett and I had been fishing on the evolutions and paddling, and we were like, no, come on, something's got to be fast. And that's when the first Pro Fisher came out.
Okay.
So
and then you lost the keel and.
Yes. Yeah. So the evolution range still had the keel in the back and the same rudder as a super light. It was pointed nose, pointed tail. But before the evolution, there was a ski that I experimented with. It was called the Express, named after the Pandan Express.
Yeah.
Current was so strong on a super light, we're like, no, come on, we need something that's going to be able to paddle into this current. And that's where the Express came from.
And the Express was a pointy nose one.
Yeah, it was a pointy nose kayak.
I've never
I think
seen.
not many people saw them.
Yeah. There wasn't many of them.
We made a couple, and then realized it worked, but we needed to make it better, and that's where the evolution range came from.
Okay. So, in terms of things like, so we're now at the level of where we have the structure of what we paddle on now, and I know it took a long time and a lot of puzzling and a lot of thinking of how it would work to bring about the Livewell, which was a massive improvement because it took away those clip-on Livewells, which were a hammerhead's joy. Yeah, a hammerhead, and those little grey sharks. Love those things, buzzing around trying to get into some mozzies or mackerel or whatever they were on the side. So the Livewell came about, and that's massively changed fishing. Especially, I think some of the world don't use it as much as we do, but in terms of us being able to get bait and fish in various places.
Yeah, whereas we had a period of fishing here where we only fished dead bait. No one was using live bait.
Yeah.
And when people experimented with live bait, it was mainly like fishing at the barge. Because you had live bait on tap, you put a live bait out, when you lost it, you'd catch another one. And then we wanted to take that live bait further. How did we keep it alive? And the torpedo came about. But not many people understand that from the first time I fiddled with a live well to the first time I made a ski with a live well, it took me 7 months to do it.
It felt like longer than that. I heard
it
about that story for a long time.
It could have been longer, but every time I tried something, it didn't work. And if it didn't work, it didn't necessarily work because of like where it was on the ski or something, but it was also production based.
Yeah.
Like, how do I make a live well that potentially won't leak into the boat? Because you remember, now you're playing with something that if water goes in and it does leak or finds a way to leak, it leaks into the hull. Now your boat fills up with water, you know. It's
a safety hazard.
Yeah, so it was making sure that was covered, and then the second part of it was making sure how would that live well make the ski change and how would it perform. I put it on the back. I was never comfortable with it. I put it to one side, didn't work, ski would lean.
Yeah.
I put it in the middle, it was fine, but it made too much sloshing and too much noise. Then I repositioned it between your legs, and it worked to the fact that obviously there's a little bit of fine tuning to where we are now, but yeah.
So what's the next big change that we're gonna get on the ski?
Well, the next change was the transducer recess, obviously, where we allows you to put the transducer in the water, so your temperature reading is more accurate and the reading from your finder is more accurate. That's been a game changer. To be honest, way more than I realized. I'd fished with the finder and I wasn't convinced that it was the right thing, because I also understood that to get all the production issues around it were a bit of a struggle. And funny enough, Decker, I made him a ski and he was like, just build it into the bottom, don't worry about it. And I did. I built this transducer into his ski, like literally built it and then fiddled with that pipe system and everything. And he had like an exhaust pipe thing that I put in there, and it worked. But that was like a penny drop. I went home that night and he's sitting there and I'm going, I'm a dus. No, it was like, but dus, it's actually so much easier than I think.
Yeah.
And that's how the transducer recess system came about. So yeah, to answer your question, what's next? I haven't a clue.
Whatever's next is what we need next.
Yeah.
And when we don't know what we need yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm not going to, following the story of the pattern of your other programs, going to ask those questions. I'm not going to ask you about your favorite place to fish. We know it's Pandan, and I think sometimes the memories that we have over many years and many trips create the ambience of making a place special, and sometimes not better than it is probably the wrong word, but similar like that, where I often think you talk to people and you're going to a certain spot and they tell you about these amazing fish, and you think you're going to paddle out and you're going to get those fish because they've caught wahoo, they've caught sailfish, they've caught 5 marlin, they've caught every sort of kingfish species, and you think this is going to happen, and you're paddling around and you think, where's my wahoo, where's my sailfish,
Perception,
where's my marlin?
Right? Perception.
But this is accumulated over multiple trips that they've condensed in their head into one fishing session.
It's the same as a fishing show on TV.
Yeah.
If you watch a 30-minute show on a guy fishing wherever, you look at it and go, that's unbelievable. But what he doesn't tell you that it was probably 2 weeks of filming, 406 hours of editing, and you got a 20-minute show.
Exactly. That is what we need to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So besides Pandan, where's your next best place to fish?
In Mozambique or out of Mozambique?
Wherever.
In Mozambique, Milibangalala. Just because of when we used to go, it was just remote, it was special. There was no cell phone coverage, there were no toilets, there was no water. Although we had to dig a hole in the floor, I think, and get buckets of water. And it was like living off the grid. And the fishing was great. Marcus and I had a few trips there, and we worked the area out quite quickly because we'd been fishing in Mozambique a lot. So we transferred our knowledge from other spots, and we worked Milibangalala out, and it had some amazing, like, different types of fish close by.
Yeah.
I think, and it was just a special, I don't know, I just enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that place, and it was just sad that obviously they built a lodge there and we couldn't, do the rough style of fishing. Coming back with a full-grown beard and dirty hands and feet, and your wife telling you to go and bath because you look like a mess. Yeah.
Has made the memories.
Yeah.
And in South Africa?
In South Africa, I don't think there's any spot that really sticks in my mind. I enjoy fishing Westbrook because it's close to work. And it's always been a place that I've enjoyed fishing, even from the way back then. We used to spend a lot of, mainly our afternoons. And I've always said to people, I prefer fishing Westbrook in the afternoon in comparison to the morning. When I fished with Brad a lot, we would often fish Umshloti in the morning, Westbrook in the afternoon. And I think even this year, Pierre and I had a long chat, and we were saying, like, as much as we've been fishing Westbrook, we still don't fish it in the afternoons enough.
Yeah.
You find a gap in the morning, but you just don't find that afternoon gap. And
because always the wind coming up.
If I think about it, the good fish that I've caught in Westbrook last year and the year before were all afternoon fish.
Yeah.
They were all the good after the days fishing that I've had were actually afternoons.
And on your trips, I know you've done a few trips to your suppliers that sell for you in Australia and Florida and Japan as well. What's little bits that you've...
Yeah, so I've fished in most of those places that I've been to, and what sticks in my mind really is how blessed we are with fishing here.
Yeah.
Like, we've got fish on tap here that I don't think the rest of the world fully understands. And a lot of the places I've been to, the fishing is so different to the way we fish, and it's like anyway, you've got to get used to the way they fish. So you puzzle for the first few times and you don't get a bite.
Yeah.
But so what? You're paddling. The guys there that fish often, they've worked it out and they get fish. They understand the area. The Gold Coast is beautiful. I enjoy fishing there. I had a nice time when I went to New Zealand and I fished with Ryan Griffiths. We fished for kingfish a couple of times, or what we would call a yellowtail. They call it kingfish. And those are probably the most places that stick to my mind. America, I didn't get a lot of time to fish. I did go to the Bahamas with Julian to a competition. But that's the Bahamas, and that's really, really different fishing. You're going from, we could see the reef, we could see the bottom, and you paddle 5 meters and the fish finder bottoms out because it's 1,000 meters deep.
Yeah.
It's like an unbelievable
get
drop off, and there was just greater barracuda everywhere eating your fish. I mean, eating your live bait. So it was interesting, and that Julian got a nice fish that got taxed by a shark that was about this big. but yeah, no, it's nothing really that.
And somewhere of people that you've dealt with through Stealth, somewhere where you'd like to fish off a kayak, but no mothershipping allowed.
No mothershipping allowed.
You've got to paddle.
Got to paddle. I think Oz. There's some areas in Oz that I would really love to. I'd love to explore the western, like right up above Perth. I've been there with the Bartho brothers on a boat, and the fishing is really good. If you travel up there, there's some big great whites there too, so it could be interesting. And even the Aussie guys have a place called Double Island Point, not Fraser Island. I'm trying to think. I think it is Fraser Island. Anyway, it's just places that I've been to so quickly that I've never had a chance to fish them properly. And I'd love to fish places like that and learn about the different fish and how they target them in comparison to the way we do.
The way we do, chat.
Yeah.
Being the sailfish magnet, yourself and Marcus, if there's a sailfish around, it'll go to either one of your two baits. What is your favorite fish to catch?
Not a sailfish. I think it's probably not so much the favorite fish, but it's maybe the favorite technique of fishing.
Yeah.
And as much as I do enjoy drop shotting and fishing with jigs and everything, it gets tiring after a while.
Yeah.
So I think working an area out between live bait and dead bait and trying to get in your mind to understand what's going on and using those techniques to catch a fish is still what excites me the most. I mean, nothing beats the cuda screaming off at freaking whatever speed an hour, you know, when it screams, your reel screams off. I don't think anything beats that.
Especially the hours of
it can
sitting
be boring,
quietly.
sitting there quietly waiting for the bite, but those are the
Then
kind
all
of
hell
things that
breaks
stick in your
loose.
mind, you know.
In terms of, there's various references that are used for the craft we fish off. So a lot of the jet skiers will call it a paddle ski. Some people will call it a fishing ski. Some people will call it a fishing kayak. What if the Oxford Dictionary came to you and said, what are we calling this vessel? What would you tell them to put down?
Fishing kayak.
A fishing kayak.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a ski is a real South African terminology that we've used, you know, updated.
Because of the surf ski.
Yeah, but even then, a surf ski is actually not a surf ski; it's actually a surf kayak.
Yeah.
But we changed it to a surf ski. I don't know why or how that came about.
Yeah.
Fishing ski the derivative just came off there. But if you go and look in the dictionary and just what a kayak is,
Yeah.
I don't know. Dick and I were talking about it, but something along the lines of paddle-powered craft, blah blah blah.
With two blades.
Yeah,
versus a canoe with one blade.
Exactly, and I think that's why the kayak name stuck in it. Plus, a lot of the international markets understand it as a yak or a kayak. So for me, trying to have a medium between the both, you know. So yeah.
The fishing kayak.
Yeah.
So tips for newbies in terms of, I know we've discussed it many times of having a clinic of reading, but it's quite tough to time in when the surf is good and productive and gaps, because if it's nice weather, everyone wants to be fishing. If it's too bad weather, you don't want to put people in danger. But in terms of things for newbies, like we said, you're not buying a fishing kayak to surf the waves in. So you're paddling in behind the wave, and that is the main key.
Yeah, I think if you touch on that, I think there's no point in teaching someone how to ride a wave if they don't really know how to paddle properly.
Yeah.
And I don't mean it in a nasty way. When I say paddle properly, I mean being 100% comfortable on their craft.
Yeah.
And I think that's the stepping stone that a lot of people miss is go to a dam, go to the river, paddle up and down, watch a YouTube video on paddling technique, you know, sit upright, how to reach out, how to paddle, and get comfortable paddling.
Yeah.
Then the rest comes very, very easy.
Yeah.
You'll see videos of guys going in and out of the surf, and you go, oh man, the guy just needs to sort of adjust his paddling technique slightly, and he'd be 10 times better than what he is. So getting in and out of the surf needs to come after that. And the most underrated thing, deep water entry.
Jumping on.
How many guys can climb off their ski in the surf zone and
Oh,
get back
re-entry,
on?
yeah.
And get back on. You know,
Yeah.
we all get knocked off our skis,
Yeah.
whether it be fishing or in the surf. How quickly can you get back on, and how do you get back on? There's different ways of getting back on. So maybe those are the things that people underestimate. You know, you can go and do a launching and beaching clinic, but before you go and do it, make sure
Then
you
get on.
can get on and off your ski quickly.
So, on that note, for the 6 years that I've been at UKFC, you've promised that you're going to do a surf launching and a clinic. Can we put a date in the sand, a time in the sand,
We can 100%
of when we're going to do
I
it?
think,
Can you do it live on camera so
I
that
think
everyone knows?
So one of the things I want to do is, Dick and I have actually said about it. We talked about it, and this is obviously outside of the UKFC environment, but I'm going to want to start hosting on the South Coast where we put that house. I want to start hosting specialized 3 or 4 guys. Like I said, you go to the Umzimkhulu River, and I want to spend an hour or a whole morning with the guys, one-on-one.
Yeah.
How to paddle, you know, jump off the ski, jump back on, jump off the ski, get on a different way, roll your ski, roll it back on.
Yeah.
Before I go anywhere near the surf, okay? And when those guys are comfortable, then I will obviously take them into the surf zone and say, right, okay, guys, this is where we're going to launch. Let's go to this beach because this is the kind of launch you get. Let's go to that beach because it's actually a lot more complex and there's a lot more time involved than guys realize. But in saying that, I've obviously will 100%, like when we go away on a trip like now when we go to Casabella in Mozambique, I'll dedicate a morning to the guys for there because that's the kind of, okay, this is the kind of beach spot you're involved. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. This is what you look. But yeah, launching a beaching clinic, it's not as easy as people make it out to be.
And also, I think a lot of people underestimate the power of a stroke to be able to hit the wave, so that, because once the wave starts taking you backwards, you're at its mercy. Whereas if you can hit it and sort of subdue its power to a degree, you once that wave's pushing you backwards and it's got your rudder in the water, you're going
the old
back.
scenario, if the rudder's not moving faster than the water around you, it's not going to work. I always teach those guys that in and out of the surf. So, like I say, just simply doing a clinic here is a lot more complex than just going down and going in and out of the surf. It will hopefully, if we get it right, be launching that thing that I mentioned in the group next year, the Friday night series.
Yeah.
Maybe people will misunderstand what do you mean by the Friday night series. So to me, the Friday night series is bringing back the camaraderie of the guys standing on the beach and having a beer and a boerewors roll instead of just, I fished yesterday. Yeah. And it needs to be on an afternoon when we don't have 1,000 sports on the weekend. Yeah. On the Saturday or a Sunday morning. And also it forces us to come back in together. Yeah. Because it's getting dark. Yeah. Okay. Now, at an afternoon like that, the guys will learn about going in and out of the surf from the guys around them. Yes. I'll paddle out with the guys. Because now we're launching at 4, we're fishing for 2 hours. That's all it is. Yeah. I think those are where, instead of rushing down in the dark, getting your ski and going and seeing what you can catch, you lose that. Yeah. So I think those afternoons and those evenings that we do for UKFC, I think will go a long way to teaching guys and helping us. And the camaraderie and just being able to have that safety, because I often get a lot of people saying, when are there group fishes? And the problem is, again, it's difficult because people have different life commitments and you get one fish session every now and then. I mean, Friday evening in summer for us, if we launch at 4, we're going to get 2.5 hours fishing before it starts. Yeah. It starts to get dark. Yeah. Maybe the emphasis in the Friday night series is not about the catching of the fish, but it's actually being on the water with your mates, trying a different technique, fishing a different beach, and learning about that beach. Yeah. You know? And I think it kind of, it's back to that old competition that it used to be where there were 4-man teams. That there used to be the club interclub where the Winkelclub interclub where everyone had to catch a fish to be able to, for the team to be better, as opposed to one person catching one fish, and that was so the sharing of information and skill was given around then. And I think so you say that we experimented with one of the last Pandan competitions. That whole one of the ideas that I had was we had on a piece of paper between a few of us discuss who we thought were maybe the top 10 or 15 fishermen at the comp and who were the second 15, and then you had to pair up with the guy, and for one day of the comp your points are counted together, didn't quite work, but it did give the guys the chance to learn from, the Scott Hunter teaching you how to tie a trace, or Brad teaching some guy who'd been fishing for 6 months to try something.
Yeah.
So with the UKFC festival next year, I just have really, really wanted to be a little bit more involved again. I've had a few years of fishing and not having anything to do with it.
I'm fishing next year.
Yeah, you're fishing next year. Well, there's something that we're going to have at the UKFC festival, and it's going to be called the South African Kayak Fishing Teams Challenge.
Okay.
Be the first official South African. We'll declare it the first official South African championships, and it's a team event.
Yeah.
And it's not individual. It'll be teams of 2, so we can have Tweedledee and Tweedledum in a team. Cam and Jono in one team, and Scott and whoever in another team. And it'll be just a big floating trophy.
But they're already a team, and
but I'm saying, but now what we'll do is with the comp within the comp will be, yes, we still have the prize for the biggest fish, but there will be that trophy will be a species.
Yeah.
So the thing is for you and us to stay on the water for as long as possible, and maybe try and get a snook and a tuna. If I don't know what those things are.
Yeah.
Or a kingy or something. Even if it's a kingy, obviously it's for release, but now you have the multiplication by your weight thing, and there's a floating trophy for the best team, and then we will have a best dressed award for the best team. So you go and get some shirts made. No, we got sponsors. Okay, so we got a sponsor of a shirt for the comp.
Yeah.
How are we going to give back to that sponsor?
Yeah.
Is we need to structure something with that guy and say, right, you can make the shirts, but give the guys an opportunity to have. Imagine we had Team Tweedledee, you know what I mean, in their matching shirts. No, you laugh about it, but it's funny, but it's also fun.
Yeah, no, it is.
And I'd love a little bit of banter between the teams. It's all good and well saying they're one-on-one banter, and that side of it, I think we need to introduce again, and that's why we want to have that trophy at the UKFC comp, or I want to.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we're introducing to the UKFC challenge, or the festival, that's why I say it's a festival, is we're going to have a bass comp.
Yeah.
We're going to rope the gents from in Joburg. We've got, obviously, I don't even know how many members in Joburg. Remember now. We'll have a venue like Hazelmere. We get one of the guys from Joburg to run it.
Yeah.
And they'll join in our prize giving. They'll have their prizes within our prize giving, all part of the festival. And for us, if the wind turns really terrible on a Sunday afternoon, and we want to fish in the bass comp,
you can still go in.
You can still join in and try and catch a bass.
And likewise.
And likewise for them. If the surf is super flat and they want to join in the sea, they can join in.
Yeah.
The entry fee will be structured so that if you want to do one only, it's a lot less.
Yeah.
But if you want to have ability to do all, you pay more. But it opens the doors for a little bit more than just the top anglers trying to get a 50 grand prize.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Let's see.
And just to wrap up, I know with the Stealth Adventures, you got plans to bring that sort of fierce environment back into South Africa, into kayak fishing in KZN or South Africa.
The problem with those adventures, and I'll say it outright, when we did it, Mozambique was cheap, but you catch a kudu and you would eat and drink for the week.
Yeah.
And back then, it was easy to catch one kudu. It's not saying it's not easy now in the places you go to, but it's a challenge. It's become a lot more expensive. The cost of fuel is a lot more. We will be introducing those venues, much like the Casabella. I don't think anyone will ever underestimate the value of 4 or 5 days in Moz
for sure
fishing. And I can sometimes equate to that. In those 4 or 5 days of fishing in Mozambique with the right kind of people, you will learn more than you can fish off Devon in your lifetime.
But I think also it's not so much the fishing. It's not so much
the tipo tinto.
Being out on the water. It's once the guys have had the tipo tinto, they tell you more stories. And you're hanging around and you're sitting in a camp chair and you're talking, and information that you would never get out of someone flows freely.
Yes.
And people misunderstand that. And it's like somewhat you were sitting. They think it's just the fishing, and yes, whilst you're on the water, you probably won't see that person that's given you information, but he's told you that
that's what he used.
That's what he used. This is what you got to do, and this is the depth, and this is the speed that you're going at, and you go and you do that, and you might not land the fish, but you're now getting the bite.
If he catches a fish that you maybe haven't seen or caught before, he ends up telling you how he caught it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. And that's the difference, I think, with that. It's not so much the fishing per se of actually catching a fish or jigging a fish or whatever. It's the sitting around. Like I often get people will come onto the various groups. How did you catch that fish? And I'm like, no one's going to tell you on that, because the information gets just distributed so far and wide. Whereas when you come to a social, whether it be any one of the fishing clubs or groups or whatever, people will chat one-on-one, and people forget that interaction, the knowledge that people get is not by only seeing and stealing with your eyes. It's also just building up a rapport and relationship with people that they will then tell you that that's how to do it. And that expedites your learning the quickest, I found. Well, for me it did.
Definitely. I think, like I've touched on this in one or two of the chats before the guys, there's anyone who ever says that fishing is not an ego sport, then I got news for them.
No.
And I think that's where exactly what you touched on about knowledge and understanding, and in a group, where did you catch it? Where did you catch it? You're probably not going to get the answer you want, because the guy's going to some degree try and protect where he caught it.
Exactly.
Anyway, okay, there's no harm in asking, but don't be surprised if you don't get the answer that you don't want to. And the same way, if you say to a guy, how did you catch it? It's also, how long was a piece of string?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because simply saying I used a cuda trace, okay, what color was the duster? What nice hooks? How heavy was the wire? What swivels did you use? So where does it end? So yeah.
And a case in point of that is that those being out fishing, when you in a place like Mozambique, it was my first trip I think ever there, and you said, "Come, we're going to go fish for whatever. We're going to do a downwind," and I was set up for what we were going to do, to catch a kuta. And the next thing I see you throwing a popper. I'm like, why are you throwing a popper? Because you had seen some fusiliers on the water. You were on with the kingfish that towed you out. By the time I'd put my popper on, the fusiliers had gone because your fish had dispersed them.
Yeah.
So by the time I got up to you, after changing everything, caught up, you were fishing with something different, because there was a sailfish around, which the sailfish caught you, and then there was dark, and we went home. And I was like, well, that doesn't always happen. And a person can tell you something, and it's got to be adaptable on the water. And it's the same thing.
I think if I remember being correct, I think I joked about that, and I said to you, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch a kingfish, then I'm going to catch a sailfish quickly, and then I'll catch a kuda and we come home. And it happened like that, 1, 2, 3.
And I think, and it's the same thing. It's like being with at a trip at Vidal with Marcus, and Marcus said this is what was using in the morning, and we went out and we came back, and I used the same thing, exactly what he had done. We got to the beach and he had 2 Dorado, and what was on his rod was not what he had told me. I said, oh, why'd you lie to me? He said, I didn't lie, I just noticed the water had gone green, so that color won't work, and this is what it is. And those sort of things just come about by fishing. And it's not any malice, it's just the guy knows and you can read the water. And I think that sort of stuff you learn. And he wasn't holding information, he was just, he saw what happened.
Exactly that. So Pandan, the one we were at the competition, there were 35 oaks fishing on Pandan Pinnacle. And no one was getting a bite. It was dead. But there were signs that fish were there. And all Brad did was take his duster off his trace and swim a dead bait with no duster. And he got a bite, and he got another bite. And I said to him, okay, smart ass, what you doing? And he tells me, no, take your duster off. Took my duster off. And I got a bite, and I got a bite. It's exactly what you're saying. So you maybe for the whole morning had fished with a pink duster and got fish, and in the afternoon you didn't get a fish on the pink duster, and you don't change, you don't get a fish. Yeah. The good fisherman will adapt. You'll try things, and what you may have talked about in the morning doesn't necessarily work in the afternoon.
No.
And that's what I'm talking about when you go on a trip in Moz with a group of guys, for 4 or 5 days. What you learn in those 4 or 5 days, you will never replicate here.
Yeah.
Because 1 minute
It's
you catch
intense.
using this, the next minute in the afternoon or that you're using that, and you can hit the beach that evening when you're sitting around the fire having a beer, and all those pieces will come to you, and it's something you'll always remember because it happened while you were there, or you saw it happen while you were there.
And it's any of those group intense fishing trips, whether it be to Vidal, down the south coast, wherever it be, it's you're fishing continuously for 3 or 4, maybe more back-to-back sessions versus one session every 7 days.
I think
or something.
that the problem Vidal's a great place to fish, but the problem with Vidal is it's also a very difficult place to fish. It also, the launch is not easy, the current's not easy. You spread out very quickly. Like 1 minute you're with your mate here, next minute he's gone. Whereas some of these spots you go to Mozambique, you don't have the screaming current like that. And it's a lot easier to stay with a guy and fish with them the whole time, or stay in a group, much like, let's say you're fishing with Shloty, or you and I go for a paddle to Westbrook. But you have more fish on tap. So that's an advantage of going to a place like that over a traditional, Cape Vidal on a good day.
So I think that, to wrap that up, I think it's just, for me, it's that thing of, with people getting involved, it's the key, and just get out there and put yourself out there to expedite your learning and get it done to as quick as possible.
The misconception of any fisherman is he thinks he knows enough already. Just join a club.
Exactly.
Just join a club and join in the banter. When they have a social, go to the social. You don't have to go to every social. Go to one. Maybe you learn something, maybe you don't. When they have a trip, go on one. Join in on a morning at the beach or whatever it is with those guys. You'll be surprised sometimes you learn. I mean, I learn all the time. I'm not going to lie. I still, every time I go fishing, I learn something else, or I understand something else. Maybe how it's changed slightly, or what used to work doesn't work anymore. So
there's two people that are case in point. One guy's Storm and one guy's Shane, where they go to the socials, they fish with people, to the point where now they've got to that, because they listened and absorbed everything, they got to the point where now they can make those on the water decisions themselves, and they actually are fishing in their own right, not just replicating what other people have told them, and they're adapting on that day. So I think that's, I mean, for me, that wraps it up, is to get in and get involved, and we have an understanding of how the kayak and the legend of the yak has evolved.
It's been good chatting. Like I say, there's lots you can talk about. Love it. We can go on for days.
We can. As I said, a few beers and I'll tell you the stories that are not for public consumption.
Is that like your how to do a U-turn in the surf?
No, you got to have power like a boat.
Okay, we'll leave it at that, eh?